It's the Sidekick podcast.
Video.
Weekly.
And a phone.
And a saw.
And a saw.
Ooh, are we a comic shop?
Which one gets us better tax benefits?
That's true.
Work.
It's National Superhero Day.
Apparently, I don't know in which nation, if it's like an American thing or a Canadian thing, or
Yeah,
but
global.
but
But Alexa told you this morning.
yeah, I said good morning, Alexa, and she was like, "Good morning. It's National Superhero Day," and then some other weird little tidbit of information.
But it's like 7 things a day now. Like if you like, it's also hot dog day and Jello day.
Oh yeah, there's too many. And the
Ice
worst thing
cream
is like
day.
every like provincial holiday, like one thing I hate in like the iPhone calendar is like every like minute provincial holiday shows up as an event, the same as like the events that I pen into my calendar, and you can't remove the holidays. You can't delete them. You can't say don't show me holidays. So it's like, oh, I have work on this. Oh no, that's just like Brigadoon Day in Saskatchewan or something. Like,
Every day has a little ping on it.
but for all of our international listeners out there, as far as we're concerned, it's National Superhero Day everywhere.
Today.
Yeah. Today.
So we are celebrating by talking about our favorite superheroes.
Woo! Superheroes.
That's a thing we can do.
Yeah, whether or not you love superhero comics or you're more into like indie different stuff, you can't deny that
They have a
they
place.
set the groundwork.
It's true.
You know, they popularized the medium so that we can have lots of weird comics that aren't about superheroes now.
And we haven't done a superhero edition
No.
at all, somehow. So
Yeah.
we're here to do that.
And of all the days to talk about it.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, we all also love superheroes, but we all also have like a great love for like
Yeah.
indie and horror and stuff that is
Yeah.
very far from that realm. So I'm glad that we're having the chance to jump into this end of things a little more
Of
too.
course you are.
So we
course I
made some. We also set some ground rules. We just can't run around picking willy-nilly superheroes left and right.
Yeah.
What
So-
were the rules?
Okay, so a little
Explain.
bit of things. We were talking about some of our favorite characters and if they count as a superhero or not. You really like Spawn, but we're kind of like his motivation isn't so much protecting, or he doesn't really have the tenacity. He doesn't have like an altruistic moral compass.
Yeah.
I feel like all that should be in there somewhere. He's mostly about fuck everything. I want my wife back, Wanda. I'm gonna stab this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you're not in defense of some sort of principle, it's hard to define you as a superhero. Now,
Yeah.
protecting
Yeah.
your life or whatever is a principle, I
Yeah.
suppose. But it doesn't seem like far-reaching enough, because then, you know, Joe down the street could be a superhero because he's protecting his wife.
Yeah, because like I'd say Spawn has all the makings of a superhero. He's got the costume, he's got the
anti-hero.
powers, he's
Yeah.
got the origin story, but at the end of the day he's not defending the neighborhood or fighting the gods or saving humanity. He's working towards his own ends for himself.
I
for the
also
most
feel
part.
like if you counted Spawn, you could count, like, Venom, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't like really like
It's all
not
time period,
emblematic.
right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a time in history where lots of people would say Venom is a superhero. Look at him; he's in
Venom
the
Space
Guardians. Like,
Knight.
exactly. But if you look at like original Venom who eats brains and not chocolate,
Exactly.
I would not call that a superhero.
Anti-heroes are kind of out. Like,
Yeah.
Punisher, he's not super either, so that takes him out.
Otherwise, that would definitely be yours.
No, I don't know. I really like Silver Surfer as like a hero. Like, is that a classic? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about heroes.
It's like a.
I guess.
It's like a.
we kind of like took the hero part
Yeah.
of superhero and we're like, okay, that's kind of important.
I feel like my choice probably walks the line at times, but I think that's why I like him.
But that's fine. Like, but
he does team comics.
He does teams, he fights for a greater good, not just for himself. He's got a shiny costume. Usually he does not have powers, but he has had powers.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the art.
Yeah.
But he fits in the like classic mythos of like Gilgameshian.
Yeah,
Like-
the hero's journey.
Yeah, the
I
hero's
would
journey. Like,
definitely
he fits right in there. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's fine. Like these are all like ancient Sumerian, super mensches. So, like let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about the criteria on which we built this. Though it's interesting. Apparently, we are all true believers.
Yep.
No DC.
Oh, through and through. Yeah. I like, if I see a cool new standalone Batman story that doesn't require me to know continuity, I'll read it and I'll probably have a decent time. But I'm a Marvel baby through and through. I'm not going to say Marvel's definitively better. I just think a lot of it comes down to what you grew up around.
I mean, I haven't read a Superman comic since he lost his mullet. so 95.
I read them. I still read all of them. I'm of the unpopular category though of people who don't like Batman, like just generally as an anything. So it's rare that I like a comic like that. I on occasion like Green Lantern comics.
Wonder Woman's got some great stuff going on right now too.
I collect question stuff because I usually gravitate towards street level superhero stuff, so I really like question things when it comes to DC.
I'll give Swamp Thing a crack anytime he's got something going on.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say that DC's bad. They just gotta just gotta strip down a bit. Go back, just eat some of your vegetables, DC. Just have Batman solve some problems with some detective deduction work and.
I liked the Miracle Man Tom King arc, but it's not enough for me to like one arc of a character to say that they were a favorite of mine. So that's also the problem too, is that some of my favorite DC stuff is outside of canon. So can I count it?
I think so. They still are superheroes.
No, but can I count it as a favorite?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not really.
I was just watching a video recently on Alan Moore's Miracle Man. I'm very interested in reading that. It was a very early deconstruction, which I know we're inundated in deconstruction of the superhero mythos now, but I still really appreciate reading the ones where it's like, it seems tropey now, but at the time it was world-breaking.
For sure, and now that we have to deep dive because there are no new comics, it's a great opportunity to catch up on all that lore.
Oh yeah, we're still in COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is still a COVID cast.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Who wants to start? I feel like I always start.
I feel like I'm always last, so I can go first.
Yeah.
Alright, let's do
Start
it.
us off.
We're flipping it.
Good old Jack Kirby Stanley, Silver Surfer. Oh my God, do I love Silver Surfer? He is great. That's it. What's yours? All right,
come on.
Good old,
What about it? What about it tickles your fancy?
Well, I thought he just had a board for the longest time, and then someone who in grade school brought in one of those little flick book comics that came with the Marvel Heroes action figures.
Oh, really?
And I flipped through it, and Silver Surfer was smashing through walls and throwing things into space, and I didn't even know he was in space. I thought he just flew on a board. I thought he just could fly. That was it.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't know about his backstory. I didn't know anything.
Cosmic.
And then I thought that was neat, so I got into that. And then I got into I really like his rogues gallery. I like Thanos and Terrax and all that stuff. So that and the colors and I didn't really get into Doctor Strange and all that. I was all X-Men at the time. So it was all I didn't know the cosmos was a thing.
Yeah.
So when I found out, he's actually an alien from a different planet, and he volunteered for servitude to a intergalactic demigod who eats planets, so he can go and fly around and give him planets to find planets for him to eat. And now he feels really bad about it for doing that for eons, and now it's him kind of just brooding and being sad and philosophically flying around. I'm like, man, I killed trillions of people. I'm terrible.
I have to redeem
myself, but where do I even start? And that still fits in today, and I still find that interesting.
There's so much potential in that. The groundwork is so complicated.
Yes, and the fact that he's so free and liberated to a degree, but he's so his mind is the prison kind of thing. Because there was a huge arc when he goes to Earth. Anywhere he goes to Earth and he hangs out on Earth too long for a day or two, he's like, I'm flipping the fuck out, I need to fly. He can't.
Just major
No,
introvert.
he can't just wear pants and hang out on Earth and then get an apartment. He's not built for this.
Also, his power level is through the roof, which I usually don't like. I don't like overpowered characters that much unless they're grappling with something.
Yeah.
But he could make a black hole on a whim. He can punch a planet in half.
Mm-hmm.
He can, like, there's not like really a superhero that he can't beat up.
Yeah.
It's mostly why he's fighting. That's what I also like. That's the Superman complex too. It's him grappling with the terms of him coming with a god, with godlike power anyway, and like. And why he only fights for a good reason. Like he's technically a pacifist now. He doesn't. Life is an essential thing. It is precious. We should just make all life sacred. That's his mantra right now. So if he does throw fisticuffs, it's for a good reason, and I think that's kind of neat. And he's got, I don't know. That's just a cool thing. And I liked it when Ron Lim was animating him in the 90s. I thought that was really cool, during the Infinity Gauntlet and all that jazz. I liked it when Jack Kirby was writing it, and then when Dan Slott, I was really mad when Dan Slott took on the reins, because I was like, what is he doing? He's making it a joke. This is not a romantic comedy. That's terrible. How dare he? He's like pensive and pathos driven.
People get so mad when Dan Slott does stuff.
Like, how dare you?
Philosophically convoluted. That's what he's doing. He's supposed to be struggling, not having that going on dates. And then I started to read it. I'm like, all right, this is kind of brilliant. And
You loved it.
I loved it. It was one of my favorite things. I think I put it in my decade.
Yeah,
Didn't Dan Slott give us a shout out after that?
Yeah, he did.
I also, we had a regular customer who had that in their pull list. We were only getting those issues for that person because we get so few requests for like long arcs of superhero comics. And he kept saying like, you gotta read this, and I was like, no, it looks silly. And like, it's a romance, and I don't want to. And it took Jay having all of the trades in his apartment for me to read it. It's so wonderful.
It's really wonderful. But here's the thing it does. It doesn't water him down.
Yeah.
No.
He is still very much the Silver Surfer of how you know. It doesn't change him. It doesn't change his backstory at all. It just adds stuff, which is very nice. And it just adds him grappling with like romance. And can he do a romance again? And what does that mean to be in a romantic relationship? Because like there's a big backstory.
He's eternal.
There's a big backstory with Shalaba and all that jazz. And from when on his planet is Zenla. And yeah, he can. Like, even if you're eternal and you have a weird, ambiguous power that can pretty much do anything, you can still ping with the romantic feelings. And I thought that was really well done. You know, it was really emotional. I'm not a huge fan of what's going on with him now.
I just want to see Doug Jones return and give us another live-action Silver Surfer.
I mean, that was
right.
Yeah.
He could pop up in the Eternals,
Yeah,
right?
why not?
Little Galactus, Silver Surfer action in the Eternals.
I'm really ready for Galactus to show up in the MCU.
I'm just super excited for the Eternals, mainly just because I love the cosmic. Like, I love Guardians of the Galaxy cosmic stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited to see
the
cosmic
planet.
Marvel without it being a huge comedy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I love the comics. Guardians and Thor Ragnarok are some of my favorites. But I'm excited to see, like, cosmic origins of the universe kind of taken seriously.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, and for it to like Doomy and the stakes to be like not just like, oh, Earth will be destroyed. It's like, no, the universe will be altered forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm psyched. Who knows when we'll get more news about it.
Yeah.
It's a weird time.
And I do like now that the cosmos is aware of who Silver Surfer is now.
Yes.
Like, no one, like, if he shows up to any planet, they're all like, oh, fuck, it's like...
Yeah. And that's a cool thing, too,
Yeah.
because it means that every time, you know, they may have context for him, they may have negative context for him, and each culture is going to behave differently based on that. So he's constantly sort of, like, grappling with his identity in that way.
He's kind of like it's like if Mr. Rogers came in, but at any second he could just explode and destroy the city.
And you've read Silver Surfer Requiem, of course, right?
Yeah, Requiem was great. That was the Straczynski thing where he died. That was wonderful.
Yeah, and he said Ribic, I think, like beautiful painted.
Oh,
art.
yeah.
I have issues 1 and 4 of that. I've been.
We have the hardcover if you want it.
Ooh, no, I have read it, and then I clicked
yeah.
afterwards. The funny thing was, I was just
The single issue life.
Yeah, I read it I was like, oh cool, Silver Surfer miniseries. This was recommended to me. I read it on the subway and had to like stop myself from crying on the subway until I got home because it moved me so much.
As usual, Harrison reads something inappropriately sad in a public place.
That's what I do.
And that's
Pulling a Harrison.
he's not trying to win or lose a fight. That's what I like about him. He's just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's all he's really trying. There's a whole thing where I forgot what the arc's called, but there's a 4-issue miniseries that came out semi-recently, like in the last 10 years, where it was 2 planets at war, and they both recruited him, and they're like, hey, we want you to join our side. They did a Yojimbo thing, and he tried his best to not, like, intervene, but to, like, try to like, massage the war politics out. And he just couldn't do it, and he was like, I'm sorry, you guys. I guess you're going to war. like that's it. Like, and then he was just like, I did everything I could. I can't. Like, I'm not gonna be your atom bomb. Like, that's like I'm not for either of you. And then so he just left. And I was like, oh, that's very sobering. But now, Silver Surfer, Norman Red. I'll read whatever he's. I don't like him as a black Silver Surfer now. I think that's dumb.
But the art on that is so
the art's gorgeous. I can't say that.
And it's like it's an opportunity for really beautiful, really gloopy, like cosmic art and like Ego the Living Planet and all this stuff. Like there's amazing visual potential in a Silver Surfer comic. It's nice to see that.
And that's nice seeing that like emboldened in that. And I don't agree with anything character-wise that has been going on with him recently.
What my hope always is when we have things like that, where it feels like it's kind of, because we said like the whole cosmicness of it, feels akin to a Stan Lee and Kirby interpretation of it, right? And my hope is always is that somebody a little bit newer to the comics game, who's not aware of that original stuff, maybe picks this up, thinks it's really cool, but maybe not perfect, and then they use that as a gateway to then discover the original stuff.
Sure.
That's always my hope when I see things where I'm like, I feel like this has been done the same but better. But you know who is not a cool pacifist like Silver Surfer?
Spider-Man?
Sure. Also, Moon Knight.
Oh.
Boy. If you are a regular listener to the podcast, you know I have trouble not mentioning Moon Knight. So now I'm happy.
So just continue to drink. Like this whole conversation.
So I'll start with how did I fall in love with Moon Knight? I was in like grade 5 or 6. I was just like to think I was really cool and really edgy, but I was like in reality like the goodiest of goody two shoes. I was such a nice little boy, but I like to think I was cool and edgy. And I was really into Egyptology and Egyptian mythology at the time. And then I started playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance with my brother, like this co-op arcade game. And you could play as Moon Knight. I was like, who's this guy? He's cool. He's got a cool costume. He's all about Egyptian stuff. I like him. And then like within the next couple of years, I happened to find only one issue of this very character-defining run by Charlie Huston and David Finch that's just like the grittiest of grimmest interpretations of the character. And being the edgelord I fell in love. And I've just really been wrapped up in him ever since. Moon Knight is, if you don't know much about him, basically he was a mercenary. You could relate him to Silver Surfer in that he's killed a lot of people. He was a soldier of fortune, as it's put in the 80s comics. Like he was a mercenary for hire, definitely killed a lot of innocent people until he decided to put his foot down one time. He was not going to kill the innocent people with the rest of his mercenaries. So they killed him and left him for dead in the desert. And he was resurrected by the Egyptian god Khonshu. He says, "You shall be my knight and take vengeance for me." And that's basically what he's been doing since 1975.
Yeah, that's the origin of Moon Knight.
Like I said, there are a lot of reasons I really like him. I think the time and age I discovered him definitely has a lot to do with it. Like I found this really gritty, violent, like, oh, I love doing this, thank you, Lord, for letting me do your work. Like, I discovered it at the right time in my life, for sure. I still think I'd really like it, but one, so I feel like I'm jumping all over the place.
That's okay.
Moon Knight has been interpreted in very many different ways, which angers some fans, which is one of the main reasons that I actually like him a lot.
But isn't he like schizophrenic? Isn't that like thing?
Basically, it was his whole that's what he's known for. He's known for being unhinged and violent and crazy and having multiple personalities. And sort of that developed in a weird organic way. In that originally, like, he wasn't crazy. They were just alter egos he used to get information. He was a cabbie Jake Lockley to like drive people around a taxi cab and hear what's happening on the streets.
Yeah.
And then he was like rich millionaire Stephen Grant to get like high society information. And then like Mark Spector was his real personality. That's who he is. And that was just it. They were alter egos. But then just like the original writer at the time, Doug Mensch, did start working it in.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. The original writer, Doug Mensch, did start working it in that he'd get a little confused. Be like, I'm Jake. No, I'm Steven. No, I'm Mark. But it didn't really go a lot beyond that. And then it was sort of afterwards that other writers started taking him on that started furthering that into, no, he's actually, well, at the time they called it like multiple personality disorder, which now is not a clinically recognized term. I believe what he's said to have now is dissociative identity disorder. But other writers say that he's not crazy, he just has a multifaceted God living in his head, which is sort of what the Warren Ellis take is on it this here. So he's been interpreted in a lot of ways. Sometimes he's really violent and kills a lot of people and carves off people's faces. Sometimes he only does what is necessary because he's trying to garner the respect of his fellow heroes a little more again. But he has always been like a wild card, a little too violent, doesn't play nice with others from the top. Although he has grown and changed right from day one, he would always beat up guys a little too much, even in the 80s comics. Like, he was a little more brutal than other 80s street level crime comics at the time. There's one great issue, actually, Bill Sienkiewicz's last issue on Moon Knight. He drew this issue 26, I believe it was, of the original run, and he says, this is the best work I'm gonna do, so I'm done with the series. And that was his last issue he did. He still contributed covers, but the whole issue was just a man, a very obviously very mentally ill man, walking down the streets just like hitting people, and like you really saw inside his own head that he was abused by his father. And you see like jazz, there's like jazz music playing and drawn. It's really hard to describe. The visuals are incredible. But I think the whole issue is this really not well guy is hitting people on the street because he was hit as a kid. Then Moon Knight shows up and he's like, hit me! And Moon Knight's like, I'm not gonna hit you, like I'm not going to. And then the guy just antagonizes Moon Knight until Moon Knight just hits him down, just punches him down. The guy collapses. Moon Knight walks away disappointed in himself, and that's the whole comic.
Wow.
So it did have that tone from the beginning, but it was developed more. And the series that made me really fall in love, the 2006 Charlie Heston David Finch reboot, is definitely the one that that pushed it even further to the point where he carves off people's faces. He breaks limbs. He if he ever catches you, he'll carve a moon in your forehead, so if he ever sees you again, he knows you're a double offender.
So he's like the Zack Snyder.
Yeah! And I'm not gonna lie, I really love the edgy, dark, violent side. I'm like, oh, I love my lord for letting me do his work. Like, I really enjoy reading that kind of stuff.
What's his mantra for his white? He likes wearing the white because...
once again, it's been interpreted.
To see people coming?
Yeah, the main... It's different artists have give different reasonings, but the mainly accepted one, once again, comes from this run that basically says, I like when they can see me coming, because it's like once they see me, their hands are shaking so bad they couldn't hit the moon, something like that, because he's so like a terrifying presence.
Interesting.
But there were just so many good takes on him. If you're ever interested in reading this character, personally, my recommendations would rely on what sort of story you're interested in. Like I said, if you like gritty, violent, like, oh, I gotta serve my lord and punch bad guys and blood, and like, read this. It's great, it's awesome. I still get shivers when I read it. The Warren Ellis, Declan Shalvey was sort of a soft reboot that a lot of people really, really loved. It's very episodic. Each issue is very like a standalone beat-em-up adventure, but it still introduces you to the character's mythos and tells you his backstory, and so that's a really great introduction as well.
I liked him in his bone suit beating up ghosts.
Yep, that's just a one-off in this where he goes to fight some ghosts and he can't touch them because they're ghosts. He passes through them, so he goes down to his basement and like wears a big like bird bone skeleton from like Egyptian antiquity, and then he beats up some ghosts. That's the whole issue, and it's awesome.
Great.
But yeah, I always I love high cosmic stuff like Silver Surfer, but generally I've always gravitated a bit towards street level stuff. Like I love Daredevil, I like some Batman stuff. But why I really like Moon Knight is it's like street level, but sprinkled with mysticism and magic every here and there.
Yeah.
Like his whole original, like the whole 38 issue run that defined this character in the beginning. There's not really any magic or mysticism there. He's just a guy, puts on a costume and beats people up. But for a long time it was a point of contention whether he ever really was resurrected or whether he's just crazy and he just made up this whole Egyptian god thing himself. But there have been some more recent comics that I think put that to rest, and it's like, no, Khonshu is a real
He's getting like a cosmic level power.
That's the thing is,
right? Yeah.
he was Jason Aaron's run of the Avengers right now. Moon Knight was going to be the villain for the next big arc. It was going to be the age of Khonshu. Moon Knight was ascending to godlike levels of power and basically taking over the world. And I was so excited. Now it's on hiatus indefinitely.
On hiatus, but like due to COVID.
Yes,
right?
it'll be back.
Yeah.
I will get it eventually.
It will come.
But it was supposed to start this month. I think
I
like April
know.
16th was supposed to be the beginning of the arc, and I was so excited for it.
I'm sorry, buddy.
That's okay. There are people are dealing with much worse things than a comic they were excited for not coming out.
Yeah.
So I'm counting
But
my
there are a
blessings.
lot of people upset about that very thing.
Yeah.
So you're not alone.
But Jeff Lemire had an amazing run
Oh,
on
he
the
had a good
character as
run.
well that really gets you inside the mental health of the character and how he deals with his multiple aspects.
And they really played with the artwork.
Yes.
They gave you like different artists worked on different arcs so that depending on where he was or what he was going through, it looked different, which was amazing.
That was my introduction to James Stokey's art.
Yeah.
Because he does some in the end, and now I'm obsessed with all of his art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of grew up enjoying this character, and in the past like 5 years,
And
really
then
got
Max
more into
Bemis
it.
did some.
Max Bemis did an incredibly divisive run among fans. A lot of Moon Knight hardcore fans do not like it. I really appreciate it. I think it shows some weakness in the end, but I think one place it really shines is showing more of his human Mark Spector than his tortured Moon Knight beating up bad guys. Like he has a kid now.
And he doesn't really always remember that.
Yeah.
He's trying desperately to get back to his family.
Yeah, like one of his
And it deals with mental health.
Yeah, he's dealing with mental health. He's dealing with the fact that one of his alternate personas has a child with the woman he loves. And now he's sort of reabsorbing those personas, so it's weird. One thing that is, I think, a strength and a weakness of Moon Knight as a legacy is that every writer kind of ignores the previous run and does their own thing, which gives you a lot of really cool interpretations of the character. But sometimes you want to see the weight and gravity of how the last run ended be impactful.
Yeah.
Like the Jeff Lemire runs with him accepting his mental illness and being like, there's nothing wrong with me. These are all me. This is who I am.
Yeah,
I'm okay. I don't need you, Khonshu. I can do this without you.
Yeah.
And then the Max Bemis run starts and he's just with Khonshu again.
Yes.
Which is, it's a great run, but like, and that's the thing is now that he was going to be ascending to godhood with the Jason Aaron run, is the fact that he has a child now going to come into play? Like
I imagine so.
Because we had the whole Conan Serpent Wars miniseries.
Yeah, but he was a sidebar.
At the same time, though, I think that is going to explain how he got to his god level powers. I think it is tied into continuity because that series ended with him becoming super powerful on sort of a cliffhanger. But
Yeah, but we didn't really get any character moments, is what I'm saying.
I agree 100%. That's what was ultimately my disappointment with that series. I like Moon Knight. You should, everybody should give him a shot. No, everybody shouldn't give him a shot. My mom wouldn't like Moon Knight, and that's okay. But
He'll always look cool,
he's a cool-looking guy.
no matter what you think of the book.
If you're into sort of like street level characters that have a mystical aspect, that struggle with mental health, and have a lot of inner conflict, this one's for you.
That was a beautiful summary. Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
I'm gonna pause
Yes.
so we can switch cards.
Okay.
Yes. It's comfortable and good for the spine.
I'm so sorry. You could move him then.
doesn't
He has
want
his
to
own chair.
He's got a little headrest now. I'm not gonna stop him. Actually, I think he's not even in the frame right now, so they just see me laying like.
Okay. That's a choice that we're making.
Take it away, Chris. Who's your superhero?
So I picked a classic. I love Spider-Man. I guess since we all did this, the first time I read Spider-Man, I had gotten a free comic somehow. My dad used to sometimes volunteer at an auction, so he brought a stack of comics home one day. I think I was like 5, and I carried it everywhere until it fell apart.
Do you remember which one it was?
No, it was just like a random issue of Spider-Man that I had, and then all the pages kept falling out because I just kept carrying it around everywhere because I was obsessed with it. And then he took me to a thing once at like a Walmart because there was a guy dressed as Spider-Man there who was signing Spider-Man comics for like no apparent reason.
It wasn't Tobey Maguire.
It was just like a dude in a Spider-Man suit. I think they were talking about like doing like a new Spider-Man cartoon or a series or something.
I think I have a.
It was like promotional.
Yeah, I think I have a Spawn issue signed by Al Simmons. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
it was just like a guy in a suit. We didn't like. We were kind of like outside of Windsor, like in the county, so there wasn't anything. There wasn't like a comic shop or like a whatever. There were just like mall plazas that sometimes had weird stuff. There were no like conventions or anything. So that was as close as I had ever gotten to that.
Yeah.
Is this guy in like a mall plaza dressed as Spider-Man, and it blew my fucking mind. I loved his costume. I loved everything about it. We bought a whole stack of comics from the mall. I went home and like tried to draw them. Anytime we could get comics, I did, and I fell in love with comics, and Spider-Man was my first comic, my first time seeing a guy in a comic book costume, my first time with any of that, and I was just like, I have to have it somehow. And then when you got into the story, it was really super duper relatable. Like even then, like my mom had passed away, and I was learning what it was like to like grow up despite like feeling kind of like lost and confused about who you were gonna be and what you were gonna do. And like my dad passed away shortly after that, and I could just relate to this kid who was just trying to do his best, but like couldn't make time for everything, couldn't be everywhere, didn't know sort of like what type of person they were gonna grow up to be. And there was so much there for me, and then all the fun of it, like that in spite of all of that, he's having the best time in his costume. He thinks his powers are still like fun. He's beating up guys in like dumb like Rhino suits. I love like Rhino and Scorpion and like Vulture, this old man who like wants to rob a bank.
No matter who your favorite hero is, Marvel or DC, it's kind of hard to refute that Spidey has the best rogues gallery by spades.
Oh, for sure, 100%. They're so funny and weird and interesting, and then I liked that the arcs like often ended with him realizing that like Sandman just wants to get enough money that he can like support his daughter or whatever. There's always like a motivation. Doc Ock like was once a scientist, and like Spidey also wants to be a scientist. Like there's this sort of like dialogue going on between him and the villains, and he always like has this empathy sort of for them, and that really resounded with me. It seemed very human. And then he can't get dates and he smells and whatever. And like that also, I don't know, like as like a nerd growing up, he was me, and that was the point. Like when the character was invented, that was the idea, was that they didn't want like a supermensch. They wanted a relatable character that was like the people reading comics. And it worked. And I didn't take Spider-Man comics out of my pull list at my local comic shop when I finally moved somewhere that had one, for the entire duration of me living there. And then for a really long time after I moved to Toronto, it was anything that had Spider-Man in it. Just throw it in the bin and I'll buy it. It wasn't until after the Dan Slott run, which I know was another contentious arc, Superior Spider-Man, when Doc Ock inhabits Peter Parker's body. I still liked it. I thought it was an interesting thing. He's still in there too, and even still, like even after Doc Ock inhabits Peter Parker's body and is like determined to do a better job and be a superior Spider-Man to Peter Parker, and there's like so much malice and spite in that act of like taking over someone in that way.
I mean, it's kind of like Kraven's Last Hunt, right? There has to be some inspiration there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not without its respect for what came before.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't hate it. But like, even in doing all that, like when Peter Parker returns, he doesn't hate Doc Ock for doing that, even though it's like the most invasive and horrible thing you could probably do is like take over someone's body because you think you can be them better.
Yeah, and to try to get with their wife/girlfriend.
Yeah, all of that. It's so gross. But Peter Parker is just like, yeah, he was dying and having a hard time. Because that's who he is.
Yeah.
That's who he always is, regardless of the run. And I just like, I love that. How it's hard to argue with a hero who does the right thing over and over, regardless of what is being presented to them. And Doc Ock realizes he can't be a better Spider-Man because there's something about that part of Peter Parker, like that part of his heart, that makes him always right for the role. So, I love it.
I still haven't forgiven Avi Arad for Spider-Man 3. Could have been so good.
I know. The movies are a whole different thing.
First two movies are perfect.
I don't like Tobey Maguire. I think he cries too much. He never really inhabits the like silly, quippy Spider-Man role, which is part of what I love.
You're out, Gobby. You're out of your mind.
He's out of the three. He's still my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
I really like whatchamacallit right now.
Tom Holland?
Tom Holland's.
I think he's a great Iron Boy.
He's such.
That's a good point.
He's such a baby. You know what I mean? Like he's such a convincing like young person.
I love his performance. I love him. I love all the new movies. He is Iron Boy.
Now, I guess like, when they first did Homecoming, like when he's going through the backyards. And he can't figure out how to.
That's great.
I just.
One thing, I love these new movies, but one thing.
You made audible noises of sadness and like, when he was pinned under rubble and he was like, "Let's go, Spider-Man! You can do it, Spider-Man!"
You know what? But you weren't with me when I saw Amazing Spider-Man, so the Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
And everyone gives those movies so much shit, but the thing with the little kid wearing the costume and he gets up in front of Rhino and is just like
those movies there's a lot wrong with them, but there's a lot of good parts. Like I think it's the end of the first one when Spider-Man's like there's like a car hanging off a bridge and he like takes off his mask and gives it to the kid and like there's some amazing moments.
That's what I'm saying. That stuff to me is like so true to the character that it's like it's hard for me to say like the entire movie deserves to be thrown in the garbage because it's like they're trying to understand the character and they occasionally do a good job.
One of my main beefs with the current Spider-Man, and this is taken directly from High Top Film Reviews on YouTube. He's great, check him out. is like what you were talking about Spidey's rogue gallery and his relationship with Doc Ock and how personal his relationship is with every villain, how well he understands them. Everyone he's gone up against so far has had beef with Iron Man, and then Spider-Man gets in the way to help.
Yeah.
Like, Michael Keaton's Vulture, I love. Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, I love. They're both amazing. I really like the take on both of those villains, but they're both just trying to destroy Iron Man, destroy Iron Man's legacy, and then Spider-Man like comes in to stand up for his like pseudo daddy.
That's kind of why I'm excited because of the Sony acquisition for Spider-Man, because like they can't reference Iron Man in the Sony stuff. So I'm like, Spider-Man, if they made this deal with Sony, then he's kind of stuck in just hanging out and being Spider-Man. I dig that.
Yeah, like it's still true to the character. Like Spider-Man's always been like the teenager, they're the big experienced heroes, and he's kind of trying to live up to them and impress Iron Man, impress Captain. Like that's not new. Like that's definitely true in these movies.
I guess I like the fact that he's gonna grow into it because the way that they started him off with the Tom Holland stuff, he's so young that you wouldn't be able to forgive a villain that knew that. and still picked on him.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of have to let him like become his own thing before he can get a villain of his own, because like he's a baby.
You know what? I will if the next movie is like completely like his own villain that has his own beef. I will forgive everything and I'll agree. I'll be like, great, we're building to this. But if they do it again, I'm gonna be.
Oh no, you're getting Venom or Carnage or Maximum.
Let there be carnage.
Yeah, you're getting what they're just begging for that. Like that's gonna happen.
What if they bring back what's his face to do Rhino?
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, do a good Rhino.
I love Paul Giamatti.
Oh, he's great.
More the
He
merrier.
just like didn't get
He
to
didn't
do
get
anything.
to do it.
He didn't do anything. Yeah.
Apparently, that's a role he's always wanted to play since he was like a kid.
Yeah, which
And
is
then
kind
he-
of.
I'm so ready.
I am the
I
Rhino.
want that. I want Scorpion. I actually liked their interpretation of Vulture. I thought it was
Me
fun.
too. Oh, I loved it.
And I liked that he was so scary, because in the comics he's kind of like goofy.
He's terrifying, and he was so like him and Mysterio. They're both relatable. They're both have like real good reasons for doing the way they're doing, and like they come about it realistically.
Yeah.
Like Malkin's just a man trying to provide for his family in the face of like a big government
And I
entity.
don't disagree with him.
Yeah.
Like his points.
He's like, I don't care about COVID. I'm gonna go outside and work.
That twist I did not see coming.
Oh, that he's
When he
dad.
went, yeah,
Oh
when
no.
he went to go.
Oh
when he
yeah,
went-
but then he knows right away.
Yeah.
He's just like.
Because he like Peter says something that's like along the same lines. Something
figures it
Spidey said
out.
in a fight. He's like, oh.
I always hate it when they're like the
never-
romantic
oh.
interest of the villain never figures it out. That's why I like Batman Begins, because he's like, would I choose to fight me? He's like, hey Bruce, and he's like, yeah. like, and they didn't have that conversation over again.
Well,
And-
in the Spider-Man arcs, like, Gwen Stacy knows
yeah.
because he's a teenager and he's bad at covering it up.
Yeah.
And then MJ knows. Like, she tells him that she knew, like, pretty early on and doesn't tell him till later, but then she knows, like, the whole time. So, like, that's kind of dispensed in the comics, the idea that people wouldn't know.
Is his alias known to the public still? Because it was in Civil War, he's like, I'm Spider-Man, I've been Spider-Man.
And then the
They-
villains just attack his family and shit.
Yeah,
No,
but-
because Doctor Strange turned back the reality so that
Oh, alright.
Doctor Strange and Iron Man teamed up to do that because Tony realized that was the worst thing he could have done to Peter.
Yeah.
And like kind of like has to reconcile with that. So there was a Tony Stark and like and Peter Parker sympathetic relationship after that existed in the comics that now exists in the movie
Oh,
in a
okay.
different way.
Question for both of you: If somebody has never read a Silver Surfer or Spider-Man comic in their life,
Ooh.
what is the number one arc or number one series or one shot or whatever? What do you say would be your read this?
Well, the Dan Slott thing's big, but if you read the first trade of it, it's pretty contained. So yeah, I would say Silver Surfer, the Dan Slott run. I don't know what volume that is of books, but number book one of that. We'll get. Well,
There's a volume one.
there's a volume one. Get the.
You think people should start there?
Yeah.
Yeah? I think it's a pretty crowd pleasing.
It's a crowd pleasing. It's easy. It runs because no one like Don, his romantic interest, doesn't know who he is. So so they have to run through that for her to understand. And they go through the power set because he's like, I have the power cosmic. I can pretty much do anything. And she's like, that's pretty convenient. And the
Yeah, she kind of pokes fun at it, and
Yeah.
then there's a bit where like she has to keep stopping to go to the bathroom, and he's annoyed. And like, yeah.
Space, just go anywhere.
Yeah, it's a nice introductory. I think that's kind of what Dan Slott wanted to do too. He kind of wanted to reintroduce the character and kind of remind everybody, like a quick social studies class on Silver Surfer. Like, this is him and where he came from. What's his deal? Yeah, I would say that number one volume because like everything else, Requiem's too heavy to start with. Going back here might be too dated. I think the Ron Lynn stuff's great, but that's like full in Jim Starlin lore like that. You need to work your way up to that. It's Infinity Gauntlet and Crusade and all that jazz. Yeah, so I'd say Dan Slott, Volume 1, Silver Surfer.
Nice.
Like I said, I'm so, well, if you like this kind of stuff, you like this, but my all-over crowd pleaser, good introduction to the character, and then if you like this, you can do more of a deep dive. For Moon Knight, I would say the Warren Ellis.
Yeah, I would say me too.
It's a really good way to get to know this character.
I did it wrong. When you gave me your stuff, I did the Jeff Lear, then the Dan Finch, and then Warren Ellis.
I feel like I may have recommended that order to you, which was my fault.
I don't think so. I think I was just like, I know who Jeff Lemire is. I'll start there.
Yeah.
I think I did that, and then I saved Warren Ellis for last.
Yeah, because the Charlie Houston was sort of like a reboot. Like, this came out in 2006, and he basically hadn't appeared since like 99.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say if you see this one, buy it. It's great. Spidey?
Oh, yeah. Actually, so Friendly Neighborhood was a good relaunch of the title and a good return to roots, because right now they're doing this thing where Spider-Man, like, he owns his own company and he makes weaponry for Spider-Man. There's kind of that going on. Yeah. And that's not really emblematic of the original flavor of the character. This does a bunch of, like, small storylines where he saves families and, like, takes people out of burning buildings and all that stuff, and Aunt May's still there and he's still a little bit older, and there are character cameos and stuff, but it's got classic villains. It was really an attempt to, like, bring it down. Yeah, bring it down after the Dan Slott arc and sort of there was like Spider Island and a bunch of Spider War, like cosmic things where Silk showed up and Spider Woman. So this kind of stripped it back down.
What about the J.J. Abrams run?
Did it
Please
end?
don't get me started.
Did we get the end of it?
No, luckily. No one needs to read that. We also got Spidey, and that was specifically a Spider-Man title that focused on, like, the Rogues Gallery and kind of trimmed it even further to, like, an entry level for kids. So Spidey, that's what it's called, is really great because it kind of modernizes the original storyline that I read as a kid, and then gives it back to kids. So if you have a little one who's, like, interested, or even if you're just like, I'd like to read the origins, but, like, it's weird, like, you're not into the classic artwork, and some of the storytelling is clunky, like Peter Parker is pretty unlikable for a while.
Although Amazing Fantasy 15 is it?
Yeah.
I still think it's the best single issue origin story ever.
Yeah, it's very
it's
clear.
Incredible.
Yeah, yeah. If you can get your hands on that, if you have Marvel Unlimited, I think you can just read it.
Or if you find it in, like, it's tossed aside in a dollar bin, definitely get it because it's worth millions.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's the thing, is that some of these classics you can't get the original things, and even the essential collections now will cost you because they don't make those anymore either. Otherwise, I would be like, oh yeah, just read the whole beginning of the thing. But you know, it's got the clunkiness you would expect from, like, even like an X-Men tome. The intros are pretty, like,
it reminds me of an interview I read about Ultimate Spider-Man, and I forget if Bendis said this himself or if somebody else said this about the series. I don't want to put the words in anyone's mouth, but basically it was said that it was like a reinvention, a retelling of the Spider-Man mythos for kids that didn't grow up with rotary telephones and indoctrinated racism.
Well, that's the third thing I was gonna say, is they now make these collections that are $16.99 with Marvel that are really great, and they've reprinted all of Ultimate. So there's 2 volumes right now. I think the first one's with Great Responsibility, and the second one is something else. But
with great power?
Yeah, something like that. Like, and those are the Miles Morales runs from 1, and I recommend everyone, regardless of where they're at in comics reading, if they haven't checked those out, read those, because Miles is great. And, like, I don't want to say that I'm particular to Peter Parker having to be Spider-Man, because I'm absolutely not. Like, I think the animated Spider-Man movie was, like, one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen in my life.
But I like 39-year-old Spider-Man.
Yeah, I like Sweatpants Peter Parker. That was very fun. But also, yeah, I think that if you're looking for a classic Spider-Man tale with all the things I just said, with empathy, with care, with attention to detail, that's a great coming-of-age Spider-Man story. He doesn't have like as many wacky villains to start with. Like when you go into those volumes, there's not that like colorful clash of characters, but it's still a lot of fun, and there's a lot there in terms of character development and a lot of the same themes that made me fall in love with Spider-Man when I was a small Chris.
It's funny. The thing I feel like. When you ask like a comic reader what their favorite superhero is, it's almost understood that you're asking them what's your favorite superhero other than Spider-Man. I honestly have to say, like, if I really think about it, if you had to say, Harrison, all media with Moon Knight in it will be wiped off the face of the earth, or all media with Spider-Man in it will be wiped off the face of the earth, like, I probably want to keep Spidey.
He's just...
He's iconic. He's perfect. I want to hug him. Like you said yourself, he was the OG relatable superhero. They've been doing this for 25 years, and then they were like, "Hey, what if the reader could relate to this character?" Like,
and they did a damn good job of it.
Yeah.
So.
And he doesn't punch Hitler once, unlike Captain America or Superman.
You gotta love Cap for that, but there's just not a lot there that, I could relate to. There's a lot of the military experience, like, woven into the Cap lore that just, it's lost on me.
I think Leonardo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles punched Hitler.
Really?
probably.
Yeah, it's kind of like a coming of age, kind of like pass the torch. You gotta punch Hitler at least once if you're a superhero.
I was just reading about like a early Fantastic Four villain. I think he showed up in Fantastic Four like 21 or something, called the Hate Monger, and he's a clone of Hitler in like a red suit of armor. Like he's got like a red hood and like chainmail. He actually kind of looks like a Dark Souls character, which I found funny. But then it's like a Hitler clone.
Hitler clones.
So Fantastic Four also fought Hitler within their first like 2 years of publication.
Good timing,
If
Coop.
you're a hero, you gotta punch Hitler.